boxing,
beats and rhymes.
No one
can do it better.
With a record of 25-1-2, 11 inside the distance, 29 years of age, a former WBA 130-pound champion, Lamont Roach has fought poultry 4 times since the end of 2021. He's at the prime of his powers right now, physically, mentally, and all the other boxes you can tick. He arguably beat Gervonta Davis for that WBA 135-pound belt. They scored it a draw. They were trying to make the first fight in 2024. It was off, it was on. The PBC claimed the location. We're having issues with the dates. The first time they've ever came out with something like that. The fight eventually happened March this year, some 4 months ago. Personally, I think Tank had issues and the PBC had issues getting their shit together on Amazon. And that's why it took so long to make the fight. And with Tank getting arrested, released on bail, I believe now, the PBC have tried to look about rescheduling the rematch from August the 16th to maybe the 23rd or 30th or later on that month. A lot of people thought Roach won the fight, including moi. The knockdown that wasn't registered in Roach's favour when Gervonta said the hair grease got in his eye. These calls from referees, unacceptable. Gross incompetence or straight up corruption. Which one is it? There's theories that this whole incident with the mother of his child has been staged so he can get out of the Lamont Roach fight, because I believe Roach beats him handily in the rematch. And while I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole that it was staged, but I do believe the first fight has knocked Tank's confidence for 6. Tank is a talented fighter, but he has a lot of insecurities about himself as a fighter. I understand why people are saying it's staged. I understand. I'm pushing back against the theory, but I'm still suspicious. And it's unlikely the fight's going to happen in August. It's unlikely. And I believe Tank was going to get out of this fight somehow. His mind obviously isn't right. If he was focused on this fight, there's no way he would have ended up in that situation just the other week. There's just no way. This is the most important fight of his career. He's just coming off somebody who put a blemish on his perfect record. If he was serious, this fight would be signed, sealed, and ready to go. And there won't be talk of him fighting Jake Paul or any other nonsense. But it looks like Lamont Roach has had enough. He wants to move on. And he needs to move on. There's other challenges out there. He's looking at a Shakur Stevenson fight. They did agree to fight verbally, but they were awaiting the rematch of Tank. And if Lamont was successful, they'd get it on and unify. Roach should not limit himself just trying to get the Shakur voluntary. Who knows what Shakur's going to do. But Shakur's a good fight. I like that fight. Floyd Schofield, not a bad fight. Hey, William Cepeda is not a bad fight. He impressed me. And I think he is still a player at 135. Somebody suggested that Floyd Schofield should go fight William Cepeda. He had no issues fighting Tevin Farmer, who came off 2 losses to Cepeda. You can fight Cepeda coming off a credible loss to Shakur Stevenson. That's a good fight. But he has to be serious. I mean, you go through his box rec, like many PBC fighters, and their inactivity from the last 3 or 4 years is unacceptable. The amount of delays, the infrequent cards they put out. If there are boxers serious about their careers on there, you have to ask, how serious can they be really? And I expect Lamont Roach to have a fight announced by mid-August, latest.
boxing,
Beats and rhymes.
No one
Can do it better.
Frank Warren lost a purse bid to PCI Promotions from Spain to stage the super lightweight European title fight between Queensbury's Pierce O'Leary and PCI's Jonathan Fernandez, who's supposed to be a bit of a banger, 22 inside the distance in 27 wins, I believe. 158,808 euros secured the bid for the Spanish outfit. Frank bid 101,000. The question now is, does he send Pierce out to Spain, which can be a very hostile environment? How much are Queensbury invested in Pierce O'Leary? Frank spoke a lot about Pierce O'Leary and boosted him up. How did Dazn, Frank Warren and Queensbury lose the purse bid to some never heard ofs? They probably bid what they thought was the going rate, and they may have underestimated what ambitions the Spaniards might have for their man. it can happen. You could call it an oversight. And it's understandable. They do have bigger priorities like 90,000+ at Wembley this Saturday for 4 belts. But there'll still be a period where they can renegotiate the terms and perhaps get Fernandez over here to fight Pearce, just give him a slightly bigger bag. It depends how much the Spaniards want to host a fight in Spain and how much stock they're willing to invest in Fernandez. If they really fancy their chances against O'Leary, they're going to want to host it in Spain to give Fernandez the hometown advantage, the crowd, some dodgy refereeing, some hometown cooking. You know how it goes.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
Who's headlining on August the 16th? Nick Ball defends his WBA title against Sam Goodman, and we've got Moses Atoma versus Dillian Whyte. Similar situation to Weekend Gone, where Shiraz and Berlanga took the main event, and Shakur defending his WBC lightweight title against William Sabeda was reduced to chief support. We know Dillian versus Moses Atoma is the main event. Nick Ball's matchup with Sam Goodman came after the announcement of Dillian versus Moses. But look, Nick is a good world champion. He's big in Liverpool. He's not a household name in the UK. Dillian Whyte has won and lost against the likes of Joseph Parker, Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury. He's fought Derek Chisora twice. He's had several pay-per-views in this country. You'd have to say he is a household name. And Moses Atoma's knockout highlight reel is as impressive as any heavyweight prospect in the world. Let's not pretend we don't know why this is the main event. Let's not pretend. Now, what went on Saturday was a little out of order. Edgar Berlanga headlining over Shakur Stevenson should have been of concern to most people who know boxing. And then looking at the results post-fight, that should never have happened. But the question has to be asked, how relevant are sanctioning belts right now? How relevant are they? And how much time do they have left as being a barometer to who's the best and who's the champion? With the event of mass internet access, social media, and the technology that goes along with that, streaming apps, there is now a fringe market that competes with so-called conventional boxing. Logan and Jake, KSI, 2 retired boxers like Roy Jones and Mike Tyson doing terrific numbers on Triller. Remember Triller was all the rage? What do all these fights have in common? They don't have world titles attached to them. To me, the whole thing, well, boxers want to fight for sanctioning belts because they have history attached to them. Well, there's a lot of things boxing related that have history attached to them, but we don't necessarily want to bring them back, like the colour line, the mob involvement. I mean, you're paying sanctioning fees to these bureaucrats who will say, okay, this guy's undisputed champion now. He's won all 4 belts in January. Then in March, they're saying, well, we have to strip him now, and he's no longer undisputed champion. And we go along with that like a bunch of morons. I don't like them having that type of power. I don't like anybody who's going to tell me Alexander Usyk is not undisputed champion and no blood clot beat him in the fucking ring. You got to go. Your antiquated practices need to be ousted from the art of pugilism. Don King is standing his ground, and Noah McCalkin is not going to take the step aside money to let Jake Paul fight Badu Jack for that WBC cruiserweight title. Don's not having it. But it's a minor technicality for Jake Paul, in my opinion. Whether they rank him or not, he's going to get round to politics and get a title shot or a significant fight. Because what difference does it make right now? Whether he has a sanctioning belt attached to a fight with the likes of Zerdo, Anthony Joshua, Canelo. How relevant are sanctioning belt titles right now? It looks like Chris Eubank, Conor Benn 2 is going to happen. These two are not going to fight for world titles this year, and they're content to fight each other in these non-title fights because they're financially set for life. Dubois versus Usyk, 90,000 plus at Wembley. This is evidence that world title fights can still do good business, even though the undercard is a little underwhelming, but that's because it doesn't have the Riyadh season money behind it. The promoters are in a bit of a rock and a hard place, and I'm a consumer, so I don't want it to look like I'm on their side. I'm on the consumer side. But they can only work with what tools are there. The technology streaming apps, go back to pay-per-view, go back to closed-circuit TV, go back to basic TV, and before that, cinema, have to be utilized because the fighters want maximum buck for stepping in that ring. It's great for the fighters' pockets, and sometimes not, because they have to go on guarantees, and often they're not able to do them type of numbers to get them big purses that they so desire. Pay-per-view probably at its peak in the 90s and post-millennium when boxing was developing genuine superstars. But pay-per-view just can't get the audiences of terrestrial television. It just can't do it. So all them 16 million viewers that were watching Nigel Benn, Chris Eubank, Barry McGuigan used to do huge numbers this side of the world. Frank Bruno, same thing. Women's boxing, it's a niche market. But Netflix, with their huge subscriber base, can absorb the shortfall on how niche that market may be. And they'll be okay until the likes of Layla Ali asking for 20 mil to fight Clarissa Shields, and Clarissa no doubt will probably have some extortionate demands herself. If that becomes a trend where women are expecting Canelo, Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, Usyk money, then it's over for women's boxing on Netflix. That has to be a long-term strategy to be successful. The biggest challenge they're going to have is that the likes of Katie Taylor and Christy Martin, they came in the game on the backs of Anthony Joshua and Mike Tyson. Now, being there's no elite men fighting on Netflix, the women have to do it all themselves now. Netflix have a huge subscriber base, so the truth is there is no women's boxing market. They're trying to develop a women's boxing market. Now, somebody's going to get upset. What about Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano? That's not a market, it's two fighters who have had a successful trilogy of fights. If the women had to rely on selling pay-per-views to be sustainable on a streaming app, TV broadcaster, nobody would go near it. Thankfully, Netflix don't do pay-per-view. Any shortfall on what the viewership for women's boxing might be now will be absorbed by the huge subscriber base and by the content that Netflix produced that does massive numbers. So they'll have a chance to develop, and more importantly, they'll have time to develop the brand. And it looks like Turki Al Sheikh is seeing the only way to grow the sport is to dispense with pay-per-view. Breaking. Turki Al Sheikh announces in partnership with Dazn that there will be no more pay-per-view pricing for all Riyadh season and ring events, starting with the Ring TV on November the 22nd. All events will be available for free for all Dazn subscribers. Well, when you say free, it will be available for the price of your subscription. So what they're realizing now is that pay-per-view is not working. It's not working. People are just jumping on illegal streams, and the piracy issue is not sustainable. But will eliminating pay-per-view raise the subscriber base? Make no mistake, Dazn control boxing. They got the Football World Club tournaments and the World Cup. They're slowly gaining a foothold in football. But is there enough varied content that will make people want to subscribe to Dazn in numbers? It puts tremendous pressure on the likes of the PBC, who have got 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao taking on Mario Barrios for the WBC 147-pound title for $79.99. That's a lot of money. Who they got? Tim Tszyu and Sebastian Fundora on the undercard. But in that same time slot, you've got Bam Rodriguez and Carfu unifying straps at super flyweight. And that's just part of your subscription on DAZN. How are the PBC going to justify putting on pay-per-views for near on $80 for a 46-year-old Pacquiao and an average welterweight champion in Mario Barrios? A lot of people have complained about the undercard for Usyk and Dubois, saying it's not satisfactory. Now, I paid £20 for that card. Who they got on the undercard? Coley Lorena, Daniel Lapine, Lewis Edmondson, Vladislav Serenko versus Solomon Dakers, Nassim Hamed's son, and a few other no-names. It's not the greatest undercard, granted. But the main event is the undisputed heavyweight championship. Dubois is on the form of his life, with some great stoppage wins. The guy with 3 belts is already a legendary Hall of Famer. Who's complaining about the undercard here? I surely wasn't when I purchased it. I didn't even care about the undercard. And yeah, apparently, Bam Rodriguez's joint has sold more tickets than Pacquiao and Barrios. I'm not surprised. Bam Rodriguez, in my opinion, is one of the top 10 best fighters in the sport. Look at the resume. Look at the performances. Pacquiao and Bam are competing for the same time slot in the same country. I remember Pacquiao, in the last time I see him in a professional ring against a Cuban, the pay-per-view numbers flopping, and that was 3-4 years back. But yeah, it's definitely going to change the infrastructure of British boxing. Turkey not putting no pay-per-view on Riyadh season or Ring magazine cards. It's going to change the infrastructure over here, because how is Frank going to be able to justify putting on a card like Saturday's one? The main event is a great matchup, but the undercard is pants. And then in November, when pay-per-view is going to be phased out, Yard versus Benavidez, Norman versus Haney, and a few other world title fights I believe are going to be on there. It's going to be hard to justify any pay-per-view, no matter how good the matchups are. Now, Usyk versus Dubois is under the sponsorship of Riyadh season, but they obviously don't have the same involvement as they usually do in a Frank Warren card, and that's why the undercard looks a little depleted. Do you think Daniel Dubois or Usyk care about that? They sold 9,000 tickets. They've did their jobs. They're not putting any big names on the card, because they are the big names. Putting any more quote-unquote big names on the card digs into their purses. Whatever deal Turkey and Dazn have worked out, at least Dazn are back on track with their declarations when they came in the game to phase out pay-per-view. As long as they don't hike up the subscription prices as part of the deal. It's all right with me. See, they've probably already got estimates of what kind of numbers that Crawford and Canelo are going to do on Netflix. You know, big numbers. They've seen the numbers that Jake Paul and Mike Tyson have done on Netflix. Big numbers. And even Taylor and Serrano is big numbers. Great news for boxing fans. What more can I say?
Big number. Yeah.
I tell you what though, the subscriptions for DAZN are likely to go through the roof in 2026 when they announce Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one
Can do it better.